Hello and welcome. When the tenure of Constituent Assembly was being increased by a year, for once we were led into believing that political consensus has started again. Almost 2 weeks later now, it seems that the constitution writing and consensus are still in limbo. The political stalemate continues. While the major three parties are firm on their stance for what they term as consensus, the smaller parties say the Constituent Assembly has been held hostage by the bigger parties. To discuss on the same issue, we have President of Rastriya Prajatantra Party, Pashupati Shumsher Rana, with us in our studios today. Welcome, Mr. Rana.
Thank you very much. Good morning to all your viewers.
Mr. Rana, how do you look at it, the present political stalemate?
Well, it seems to me that we are in a state of real confusion. You know, like you said, the RPP also expected after the 11th hour agreement between the three parties that we would go ahead, that this agreement, which had been arrived at with great difficulty, with enormous tension, awaited by the whole country with bated breath, had resolved something. But in fact, of the three-point agreement, 1 point was implemented, but the other 2 points, which encapsulate quite a lot, they remain ineffective. They remain, you know, there is a clause in each of these two agreements which says that it will be implemented without delay.
Mm-hmm.
But what has occurred is nothing but delay.
That's exactly the point. It's a very confusing, and now it also looks like the 11th hour agreement, or that's what it seemed, was a mere drama, because there's no implementation of it, and they're not even ready to agree to each other.
Okay, whatever the drama, you and I must accept one fact, that all three parties wanted to extend the time of the Constitution.
That's true.
Okay, so whether it was their vested interest, you know, 601 members get their salaries for another year, okay, and whichever party gets advantage to what extent from that gets that advantage through their levies. Now, the other aspect is, had we not, you know, I think this aspect is cynical. I would say the other aspect is that had we not extended the period of the CA, then we would have entered a black hole, an undefined black hole. Was it going to be presidential rule? Was it going to be some you know, anyway, something not visualized by the change that took place when we became a republic. So, in a sense, we have been salvaged from that black hole.
Would you say that we've been salvaged from a black hole and put into another black hole now?
Well, I don't think it's a black hole. I think it's a grey hole at the moment.
At least there's some sign of positivity there.
Well, a grey hole in the sense that, you know, there are these two elements that we're talking about: the resignation of the Prime Minister without delay, the implementation of the peace accord, the implementation of you know, the creation of a constitution, and the creation of a government by national consensus. Now, these are things which are universally, in a sense, you know, accepted by the. I think if you were to have a poll in Nepal, everyone would say this is something we should go forward with. Now, extending the period of the Constitutional Assembly is not for its own sake. It's not for the salaries of 601 people.
The basic point there is we need a constitution.
Not just a constitution. We need a successful peace process.
True.
Okay. I think a successful peace process is as important as a constitution. And the way we had put forward our position, the RPP had put forward its position, was there was a, well, you know, everybody had a, UML had a six-point proposal, we had a 6-point proposal. We said the extension of the Constitutional Assembly should be contingent on these 6 points being fulfilled. Okay, you know, things like that. Or let's not get into them because everybody knows them. But principally, the integration and rehabilitation of the guerrillas and the cantonments, the debarrackization of the YCL, the return of property, etc., a clear-cut timetable for creating the Constitution and the commissions that are required to be made for the Constitution, that should go forward. Now, these are the fundamental objectives of extending the CA. It's not just for its own sake. The time that has been bought must be a time that is used favorably for these purposes. And we are actually quite taken aback at the behavior of the three parties. We cannot understand why they do not come to a logical conclusion on these things which are universally desired by the Nepalis.
Would you say that Constituent Assembly or the entire peace process for that matter has been taken hostage by these three parties?
Absolutely. There's no question about that. You see, what happened when the result of the Constitutional Assembly elections came out? By the way, I have grave reservations on the nature of the Constitutional Assembly. I do not accept it as a free and fair election. Whatever the case, the Constitutional Assembly was carried out, either on the fair or on fairness or whatever. The results came out. When the results came out, they were accepted. Now, the results created a situation in which 40% of the seats are held by the Maoists, around 32, 33% by the UML and the Nepali Congress. So these three parties became the arbitrators, the decision makers of how things would move forward in the Constitutional Assembly. Now, what was expected of these three parties was statesmanship, honesty, a genuine effort to take forward the Constitution and the peace process.
Would you say they never tried to practice that?
No, I wouldn't say that. That'd be unfair. I think there were attempts to try and do it. But all the time, the ambitions for power, in fact, I don't I have not even understood the nature of the Andolan carried out. Right? How can you have an Andolan whose principal objective is to get the resignation of Prime Minister and make yourself Prime Minister, for instance? And you will find equally ridiculous things in the behavior of the Nepali Congress, equally ridiculous things in the behavior of the UML.
Let's also ask you, there are three parties, and you say that they hold the Constituent Assembly as a hostage.
Yeah.
Despite that fact, let's also try to analyze whom would you blame more, the ruling coalition or the main opposition?
I think while we could get into this, I don't think this would be a fruitful endeavor. Who's more to blame? All three are to blame. All three have not risen to that expectation what the people had from them, to come to a level of statesmanship, to realize above all their limits. Nobody's got a majority. If you're going to measure who's done what, okay, principally the party which is the majority party, which has the largest number of seats, naturally has more responsibility than any other. The degree of responsibility in the Constitutional Assembly is measured by the number of seats that you have. If you have 40%, you have more that level of responsibility. If you have, whatever proportion of 33% NC and UML have, that proportion of responsibility, etc., etc. Okay, but if you look at the kind of behavior that has been exercised by all three, nobody has tried to understand the limits of their situation and the compulsions that emerge from them. Maoists have behaved, although they have only 40% of the seats, as if they have a majority. And UML and NC has behaved that with their combination and with the support of other parties like us at the moment, as if they can buck that majority at will.
So
neither is true.
Is it?
Neither is true.
Neither is true. But is it immaturity on the part of these three parties, or they're doing it with purpose?
No. I don't think. I think there are many factors here. If you
could point it out like 1, 2, 3.
Yeah. well, 1 to
Would be
3, I think it's difficult, but I'll try and point out. Okay, there are internal dissensions within the parties. Take the UML, for instance. You can see that the UML is seething with dissent. I mean, I have never seen anything more ridiculous than what happened in the well of the House just before the 11th hour. All the ladies came out. And what did you see? You saw the ladies of the UML standing in the well of the House asking for the resignation of their own Prime Minister. Can there be anything more absurd? Is this party behaving? Is this a real party? You know, I mean, UML, on the one hand, is the most organized, most cadre-based party. On the other hand, it indulges in this totally ridiculous behavior. You know? So internal problems. I've just given given the instance of the UML. You know, the Nepali Congress, if you look at it now, is behaving with great institutional clarity, and it seems to be, for the moment, unified. But I wonder what will happen to the Nepali Congress
convention is held,
if the Prime Ministership is offered to them now. Well, I would like to see how they deal with that major question. Only then will we know the true quality of the new Nepali Congress. So, you know, it's not just one party. All three parties, if you look at them, have major problems internally. I think the Maoists have kept their dissensions well under the hat. But there are deep dissensions there.
It surfaces time and again.
So, I think a great deal emerges from the internal dynamics of the party. I don't think anybody's got really bad intentions as such. It's their incapacity to manage their differences. It's their incapacity to, you know, put forward. This is a period, to me, in which everybody should put their ambitions, you know, behind.
Would you also say that they are using the government seat or power to divert attention from their own party problems?
No, I didn't say that. I didn't say that. I didn't actually say that. I think frankly, at the moment, you know, although we have one minister in the government, I find the government a bit of a mess. And I think, you know, the role of limited partisan interests. You know, the government is not operating on a broad spectrum with national interests in mind. Both the government and the opposition are operating for partisan, very narrow party interests.
So here, there would be one accusation at your party as well, being one of the smaller parties. The smaller parties have also been seen in joining the governing coalition. Just to have a share of the governing pie, if I may say that. And they are they really trying to build some kind of consensus? It seems they're not.
You know, we entered the government at the point when the commander-in-chief had been sacked. We put very few preconditions when we entered the election. In fact, I'm continuously blamed within the party for not taking our share of the